what are Chinese characters? Are they pictures? Are they like Egyptian hieroglyphics? Well, we're going to give you the lowdown right here on Learn Chinese Now. Chinese characters have a history of thousands of years. The earliest time we've found them is around 1200 BC, when there were characters written on turtle shells and on the shoulder blades of cows. Yes, that's right. These were called oracle bones, because an oracle would write on the bones and then heat up the bones over fire and see how they would crack. They would guess the future of someone based on the cracks. Now, we've come a long way since then. There are thousands of Chinese characters, and some of them are really complicated looking. But if Chinese characters are based on pictures, how do we use them to communicate complicated subjects like chemistry or physics? Well, the fact is that the Chinese characters we use today come from a bunch of different origins. Chinese people say that there are 6 different types of origins for Chinese characters, which they call 六书. So we're going to talk about them one by one. But before that, if you like what we're doing on this channel, please give us a like and subscribe. So the first type of Chinese character is called a pictogram, or xiàngxíng. This is where a character is basically a picture. For example, you've got zhì, or sun. Now, this originally looked like a circle with a dot inside, and then the dot became a horizontal line, and you have the character we have today. Here's another, mu, or tree. Take a look at the original character. Looks like a branch. That gradually simplified into the character we have today. So the second type of character is kind of similar. They're called ideograms, or zhǐshì. So ideograms are when a character is supposed to represent an abstract idea. The most obvious character for this is 1, I, which is a single dash. 2 is 2 lines, R, and 3 is 3 lines. Here's another one, shang, or above. So you have a horizontal line at the bottom, and you have a vertical line leading to another shorter horizontal line above it. That signifies above. If you look at xia, or below, you see a vertical line below the main horizontal line with a short diagonal line dropping to the side. So you get the point. An image to depict an abstract concept. The next type builds off of what we just talked about. It's called compound ideograms, or huìyì, and it's when you combine 2 pictograms or ideograms to make a new character. So if we take 人, which means person, and which looks like someone walking, and slap it together with the wood character mu, you get 修, which means to rest. I guess someone resting on a tree. If you put the sun, 日, and moon, 月 characters together, you get ming, or bright. Pretty cool. But eventually, Chinese grew to the point that basing characters off of images wasn't going to cover everything. So they devised something called Phono-semantic characters, or xíngshēng. Now, what does that mean? It's basically a 2-part character. One part signifies the meaning, and the other is there to signify the pronunciation. Let's give you an example. The character hu, which means lake. So the compound on the left, shui, signifies water, and the compound on the right has the pronunciation of hu. By itself, the component on the right means gourd, but when it's there on the right side, you can just ignore its original meaning. Here's another example, tong, or copper. The component on the left, jin, means metal, and the component on the right has the pronunciation of tong. Now, sometimes these compounds are top to bottom. For instance, cai, or vegetable, has a top compound, ao, that means vegetable, and a bottom compound that has the pronunciation of cai. Now, this is really the backbone of the Chinese language system. About 80% of Chinese characters are built this way. Pictograms, ideograms, compound ideograms, and phono-semantic characters. That's really the heart of the Chinese character system. But we've still got a couple of rare categories to go through. So the first of these categories is called borrowed words, or jiǎjiè. This is when Chinese people didn't have a character for something, so they borrowed a character that meant something else. Remember, in the beginning, when Chinese people were writing characters on oracle bones, the characters were pretty practical. You know, you had sun, wood, fire, pig, and so on. So what if you want to express something more abstract, like don't do that, or come over here? Well, they just took another character and dual-purposed it. For instance, the character lai means to come. It originally meant wheat or mai. Since the pronunciation of the two characters was kind of similar, they just used one character for both meanings. Nowadays, wheat has its own character, mai, but that was a later development. Here's another example. At some point, Chinese people needed a word for self, so they ended up using zi, which is the character for nose. So you may have noticed, when a Chinese person refers to themselves, oftentimes they will point at their nose, as opposed to point at their heart or their chest, which is what we do in the West. There you go. Now, this last type of character is kind of wishy-washy. It's called a derivative cognate, or zhuǎnzhù. What it means is two different characters that used to be very similar, but that diverged in meaning over time. Let's give an example. Lao and kao. So lao was a depiction of an old man hunched over a cane, so it meant old, obviously. Now, kao originally meant someone who had lived a long life, which is pretty similar to old, but its meaning changed over time. Now it means to examine something, like in 考察, which means to inspect, or 考试, which means an exam. But you can see how the meaning of 考 derived from the age and experience root that the two characters came from. Here's another example. 蛋 and 长 both came from 日 or sun, but their meaning began to diverge, with 蛋 meaning dawn and 长 meaning something more abstract like brightness and prosperity. So there you have it. These are the 6 forms of Chinese characters. Do you have any questions about a particular character? Do you want to get into any of these categories in more detail? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, 再见!